Someone mentioned to me about 7 years ago that I was missing out on so much Star Wars lore by just watching the movies. Many late nights, sedentary weekends, and rabbit holes later, I can't get enough of it. I love all Star Wars lore, and if you're here, you probably do too. Thanks for the support. Luke's downfall is written from my point of views and my views only. Take it or leave it. I'm okay with how he turned out in the sequel trilogy, and this is why. In Return of the Jedi, I see a very different Luke Skywalker from the one I first met on Tatooine in A New Hope. Yes, I know he's more confident, but is he really? Actually, he is obnoxiously arrogant. I noticed this at 9 years old. There's no denying it. George made this very obvious. For example, when Luke visits Jabba the Hutt's palace to rescue Han Solo, he walks in with a boldness that is striking. He threatens Jabba without hesitation and confidently uses the Force to influence Jabba's guards. This shows a change in Luke. He now believes in his power and abilities as a Jedi Knight. He's even more arrogant than the Jedis in the prequels. Yoda, the wise and old Jedi Master, trained Luke, but he did so with the knowledge and methods from the old Jedi Order. This is the problem I have swirling around in my head. The Jedi of the past were strict and believed in following rules and traditions closely. Yoda tried to pass on these teachings to Luke. He taught Luke to be mindful of his feelings and to avoid the dark side. Remember, Luke is told that he's one of 2 Jedi left in the entire galaxy, which adds to his arrogance. However, Yoda also trained Luke in a very short period, compared to how long other Jedi trained in the Order. This meant Luke had a lot of power, but not as much wisdom or experience to guide it. Without the proper training, Luke was bound to have ups and downs. You can take a 4-year-old youngling and spend 12 years teaching them how to cope without attachments. Not a 20-year-old. Hell, it didn't work out well for 9-year-old Anakin. Luke and Anakin were doomed from the start. Luke would only receive a very small fraction of knowledge of the Force before he was thrown in the fire. As a result, Luke sometimes acted recklessly. In one occasion, he left in the middle of his training to save his family. Han and Leia. This came even after Yoda and Obi-Wan warned him not to. Surprise! Think about it. Luke had no more than running around a jungle with a midget in a backpack on his back for his training. Oh, and a few backward sentences. Even when he confronted Darth Vader and the Emperor on the almighty Death Star, he was determined to bring his father back to the light. But his anger and desperation led him to make mistakes. He nearly fell to the dark side himself when he attacked Vader in rage. This showed he still had much to learn about controlling his emotions and power. If Vader wouldn't have stepped in, he would be dead. After the fall of the Empire, Luke tried to rebuild the Jedi Order. But when his nephew Ben Solo started to show signs of turning to the dark side, Luke considered a drastic action. In a moment of fear and weakness, he almost killed Ben, which pushed Ben further towards the dark side and led to the rise of Kylo Ren. Now remember, Ben was his nephew. We're talking about the son of the 2 people he cared for most. He basically killed their son. He felt ashamed and defeated. Anyone would, even the most powerful being in the entire galaxy. To make matters worse, Luke ran away to a remote planet and cut himself off from the Force. The guilt and failure makes Luke feel responsible for the rise of Kylo Ren, which shatters his belief of the Jedi Order and his own abilities. He now sees that the entire galaxy would be better off without the Jedi. After much Star Wars media research, I learned that Luke believes the cycle is never-ending when it comes to the Jedi and Sith conflict, and it will keep repeating itself. Interesting, right? To stop further bloodshed, Luke feels it's better to hide just like all the other Jedi and cut himself off from the Force altogether. Why not? Yoda and Obi-Wan did it. His masters. This was similar to what many of the other Jedi did when they were defeated during the Clone Wars after Order 66. They went into hiding instead of facing their failures and trying to make things right. The Force Awakens reference. Begin to make things right, meaning find and guide Luke back to the Force. What a great character arc. Luke's actions show that despite his power and training, he fell into the same traps as the Jedi before him. Why wouldn't he? He had less training than any other Jedi, no years as a Padawan being mentored, no hands-on training experience, and no real Jedi trials to test him. A few backwards Yoda verses and a parkour trail with a weighted backpack doesn't count. His journey reminds us that being a true Jedi is not just about having power, but also about wisdom, humility, and the willingness to learn from mistakes, which he eventually did. At the end of his journey in The Last Jedi, we see Luke struggling with his past mistakes and trying to find a way to move forward. It's only with the help of Rey, with her message to help Leia, which happens to be the same message that pulled Obi-Wan back to the Force and the memory of Yoda's teachings, that Luke finally understands that he must face his fears and failures. Luke finally becomes a wiser and more humble Jedi, showing that true strength comes from learning and growing, not just from power and skill. Yeah, I get it. I know what you're going to say. He died helping his family and friends just so they could escape a simple skirmish. Might I remind you, so did Obi-Wan Kenobi. In closing, Luke was too old, less training, and no experience. If his life would have never happened the way it did, then Luke would have been a Mary Sue. Thankfully, he was not. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Force push that subscribe button and ring that bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
You have failed me for the last time.